G'day everybody, welcome to another episode of the EveryWei podcast. I am Everyday, and with me, as expected, is Yulwei. How are you tonight?
Yeah, feeling great. Finally, VCS is on the horizon again. We had to wait way too long the whole week. I felt kind of just wanted to cast again. VCS.
I know. Truly, we do. It's funny because I complain so much about how many hours we do, and then as soon as we're done, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
could go for another night of casting.
Yeah.
Bit bored.
Indeed.
Just shows how good the league is. So we have had a few weeks of play now. We're starting to see the league sort of shape up and teams shake out to where they're actually going to be. So why don't we do a little bit of a whip down the ladder, and you just give us just a few words impression on each team. So Gum, what's your impression so far?
Stomping everyone.
Yep, easy. Flash.
The second best team.
Yep, very much. Cerberus.
Oh, that's difficult. What is Cerberus right now? Very good bot lane.
Okay. Secret.
Secret.
For listeners who maybe haven't been paying attention, Secret is 𝘀𝗀𝗏𝗀. They rebranded. Just to let people know.
Playoff team, I'd say. I don't really know what attributes to give them, so I'll just go with playoff team. Yeah.
Okay, I completely agree with that. EVOS.
EVOS is a difficult one. A lot of potential. Let's go with a lot of potential.
DBL.
DBL. VCS's LCK team.
A bit harsh, man. Adonis.
Oh, Adonis. Better than expected.
That's exactly what I would have said. And FTV.
What team?
Who?
Where? Sorry, come again. What team?
Yeah, FTV not having a good start this time. They've looked pretty dreadful, if we're totally honest. But
0 and 8.
with that,
0 and 8.
Yeah, 0 and have not won a single game, let alone a series. It's pretty tragic, to say the least. But we will move on from those very short impressions to a little bit of a more dive onto some of the more interesting teams. We'll begin with Cerberus, which they're a bit hard to read.
Yeah, Cerberus is a very interesting team. I'm very glad Cerberus changed up their roster and is now actually a contender, because another split with Cerberus, FTV, and potentially Adonis down in the dumpster would have been a little bit annoying or boring to watch as well. So I'm very glad to see them being able to keep up with the upper echelon of teams. Interesting players, Zhuhao and Artemis joining the team really upgraded them. And so far, so my impression was very good bot lane, and I think Artemis and 𝘀𝗀𝗏 are the outstanding players, especially 𝘀𝗀𝗏.
Yeah.
3 MVPs from us already. He's the owner.
𝘀𝗀𝗏's looked fantastic.
Absolutely. So how would you, if you had to describe Cerberus, how would you describe Cerberus? Or what do you think are their biggest strengths?
I think their biggest strength is, and I know this sounds so weird to say it about Cerberus, is their game plan. I think they actually have a really good game plan leading up to the mid game. They sort of know what they're doing. Sometimes the wheels fall off because they're not necessarily the best players, but they look almost better coached than most of the VCS.
I agree.
With the exception of maybe DBL, who also have a really good game plan, but this split, their players have been... The wheels haven't fallen off in some games. In some games, they've never been put on.
Yeah, for me, Cerberus looks very much like an upper middle team, if you can say that. So it seems like they can beat everyone below them, but they will struggle against everyone above them as well. I think they lack a little bit of firepower still. Maybe Artemis has to step into a little bit more of the carry pants as well, to really drag his team up into the contender role, because right now I don't really see them as a title contender. They're more like playoff contenders, probably right now in a good position to get into playoffs even, maybe even better than EVOS and 𝘀liche𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀. They beat 𝘀liche𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 2-0 very convincingly, but their losses against 𝘀𝗀 and 𝘁𝗏 made them look like they will struggle against teams that have better players. So that's why I come down.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think that's sort of what I was trying to get at, that you very eloquently expanded, is that their fundamentals are good, but they don't have the X factor that lets them beat better teams. They just don't have the surprise tactics, or the... Not even tactics, just skill.
Yeah.
They just don't have players that'll blow a lane out.
Indeed, yeah. The raw skill is a little bit lacking, yeah. I think they have good players all around. LL is a solid top laner. 𝘀𝗏 on his champs, I think his champ people is still a little bit of an issue, especially when we enter 10.3 and the jungle meta might change a lot. 𝘀𝗏 might be a little bit of a weakness for Cerberus. 𝘂𝑎D has looked average. I actually don't remember anything 𝘂�ԱD has done in the game so far, neither good nor bad, so he's average.
Yeah, he's just sort of been chilling.
And bot lane is the big plus, but I think you have to have solo laners that can contain people like Yoshino, Kiaya, Dia, even, so to really compete here for the top spot. But it's still a good step up from Cerberus, and maybe they can build on this.
Yeah, considering where they were last split, even saying that they're playoff contenders is a huge improvement for them. They probably can't challenge Flash or 𝘀𝗀, but still, I don't think that was their goal going into the split. I think they are probably pretty happy with how they're going so far.
That's true.
But unless you have anything else to say, particularly about Cerberus.
Just wanted to quickly point out their remaining schedule for round 1, which they only have to play EVOS and Flash. So 2 very important series when it comes to playoff contention, especially against EVOS. They kind of need to win to confirm the top 4 spot. So the upcoming game against EVOS is... it's not happening until week 5, but that's a super important game for EVOS. No, for EVOS as well, but for Cerberus,
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, I didn't realize that was their schedule. Those are very, very important matches. If they were able to get one up on Flash, that would be really, really big. Don't think it's particularly likely, so I think you're very correct that the EVOS matchup is much more important. The other kind of interesting team in the playoff race, well, one of the others, there are a couple, but is 𝘁𝗁, who had a very interesting week this week, to say the least. They couldn't play their mid laner.
Who is their star player?
Yeah, exactly. Artifact, absolutely, pretty much the best player on their team, and he was quite ill. I'm not 100% sure what was wrong with him, but I think he's okay, but he was in the hospital, so definitely couldn't play. So they had to play 𝘁𝗀 in the mid lane. Playing 𝘁𝗀 at all is a questionable decision for 𝘁𝗁. Playing him in the mid lane, we kind of thought, oh dear, this is going to be...
Yeah, we kind of thought they had to tank this week.
Short series.
Coming in with 𝘁𝗀 in the mid lane, but as you wanted to come to as well, right? They actually look quite good, especially in the game against EVOS, which, as EVOS is one of the teams, as is Team 𝘁𝗁, that are fighting for the playoff spots. That's a super important series, and it looked like 𝘁𝗁 would be in a disadvantage without their best player, or one of their most important players, an Artifact. And then 𝘁𝗀 came in and played great games on Pantheon, and I think it was Rumble as well, right? So roaming champs, he didn't lane very much. He fell behind in CS, but who cares? He still was able to, propel his team to victory, and he even earned himself 1 MVP.
Yeah, which is, I don't think, how many 𝘁𝗀 MVPs have we ever given? Very, very interesting for sure, but... Yeah, I think what they did is they put him on champions, again, like the Pantheon, where he was just moving around using the Grand Starfall constantly, because he's always been a bad laner, right?
Yeah.
That's always been his issue. So the fact that he was able to overcome that, looking good. Yeah, I was really impressed. What do you think of the rest of 𝘁𝗁, though, so far?
So, For bot lane, I'd say the meta is actually favored 𝘀𝗶𝗆 quite a bit. The ADCs and meta, especially when Senna was still playable, now with 10.3 hitting, she'll definitely be out of meta. 10.2 even, she lost a lot of priority, but he looked very good on Senna. He's strong on secondary carries who don't require too many mechanics. We all know he's not the greatest auto attacker, right? We have criticized him again and again. But his Syndra play, especially as well, looked quite solid. So I think if Secret can figure out a way to draft around 𝘀𝗶𝗆's weaknesses and put him on champions he can actually contribute on, like the Syndra, you don't have the weakness in the bot lane anymore, and everyone else is very solid. To a point where 𝘚_𝚻 is one of the star players. 𝘁𝗏 so far has looked great in the top lane. Not the best top laner ever in our league, but he's very new still, and he looks very promising for this team. So DNK had some good games. Olaf, a little bit too much of an Olaf priority, but good Gragas games as well. So I think Secret is very solid, and if they can, their drafting has been very smart, especially with 𝘁𝗀 coming in, as we touched on with the Pantheon Rumble picks. So I think Secret for sure is one of the teams to look out for, just in terms of it's a very smart team that doesn't really have the firepower compared to 𝘀𝗀 and Flash maybe, but maybe can outsmart them and get a series or two against those teams.
Definitely, yeah, there's absolutely potential of that. I think they are more likely to take a win off of 𝘀𝗀 or Flash than Cerberus is.
Yeah.
I think they're a bit more explosive in that way. So they'd definitely be interesting to watch. I mean, hopefully they have their actual roster back coming into this week. I imagine they would. I don't think he was that sick.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
They only play one series as well, so and on Sunday, so he has a lot of time to recover. Should be good for him.
Yeah, hopefully. Who do they have coming up that's particularly important that we might want to watch out for?
So their remaining schedule is Flash as well, interestingly enough, and Adonis. Adonis is actually a little bit of a dangerous team to play against right now for the top teams, because you can't afford to lose to them, but you can't overlook them either. They are not great, but they are good enough to threaten you if you overlook them. So you have to prepare for Adonis. Good for Secret. They only play one opponent a week. So they have Adonis this Sunday and then don't play until week 5 Friday, where they play Flash. So they have a lot of time to prepare for the opponents. And even if 𝘚𝚻 is still out for this week, they can probably beat Adonis with 𝘁𝗀 in the mid lane and then come back with 𝘚𝚻 for their big clash against Flash on Friday, week 5.
Yeah, probably. I think the schedule has lined up quite nicely for them. The quote-unquote strength of schedule definitely in their corner. So unless you have anything else to say about either of the two teams you wanted to have a look at, we were going to move on to looking at a particular matchup that definitely didn't go the way most people expected.
Let's go.
In Flash versus 𝘀𝗀, which was actually a 2-1 victory for Flash. They did get one over on the Kings of the VCS, which I don't think too many people... I mean, some people expected it. I think a lot of people were saying 𝘀𝗀 might win 2-1, and there were some people saying there's a chance Flash wins this, but after we had seen the first couple of weeks of play, how dominant 𝘀𝗀 was, how ropey Flash actually looked, I think most people were saying, yeah, 𝘀𝗀's going to put their stamp on the VCS and win this one.
Yeah,
but
I think most even predicted a 2-0 stomp for 𝘀𝗀, if I remember correctly. Coming into the game, it wasn't that close, or it wasn't anticipated to be a close match. Everyone hoped for at least a close laning phase, and then most people thought, okay, 𝘀𝗀 is just more coordinated, more well-rounded as a team. They will just win the games. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of a closer series compared to the other 𝘀𝗀 games, which had been stomp up until that point. And we did see a close series, but not for the reasons we thought we would see a closer series, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go sort of game by game, if you remember enough of the details about each game to talk about them. So we started off with the 𝘀𝗀 victory in game 1, but it was an interesting victory, wasn't it? It was sort of very close until Levi did Levi things.
And Dia did Dia things, yeah. Strong. I like the draft. Very aggressive draft from 𝘀𝗰, who are a very strong early game team, right? Syndra bot lane flex, Dia1 on his Pantheon in the mid lane. He ended the game on 12-2-6. So very dominating game from Dia, who roamed. I think he accelerated top lane, if I remember correctly, very efficiently.
Yeah.
They struggled to close out the game a little bit. Took them more than 31 minutes, which is way above their average game time. So, especially
Yeah,
𝘁𝗏 struggled in laning phase against Yoshino in a matchup that we didn't consider to be a matchup Akali struggles in 𝘀ecie. It looked like Yoshino got the better of 𝘁𝗏 in laning phase, but yeah.
Yeah, it was the game, I think it was the one where he went Grasp of the Undying on set, which caught me off guard, because I always think Conqueror should be the go-to rune on set, but he sort of proved me wrong, because I think it made a huge difference in the matchup, and it helps that Yoshino is really, really good.
Yeah.
On the champion. He probably, oh no, I mean, 𝘁𝗏 is probably the best set in the league, but Yoshino's giving him a run for the money. For sure.
Yeah, 𝘁𝗏 has also played this set more times, so yeah. It's hard to say Yoshino is better, as 𝘁𝗏 has shown us time and time again how good he can be on set, so...
Yeah, that's you make a very good point. Looking down at the other lanes, I may have to just remind myself of what the matchups were.
We had 𝘁𝗏 trying to challenge Dia with the Rumble. So we had the Roam mid lane against Roam mid lane. We had Pantheon against Rumble, the 𝘁𝗏 mirror match, basically. And 𝘁𝗏 was not successful. He didn't find anything here. I think he had 1-2 good equalizers.
Was the Pantheon game.
Yeah. I think he had 1-2 good equalizers later on in the game, but early game impact was not big enough. He went for the very aggressive roam heavy rune choice and Predator, which didn't amount to anything. So yeah, very unsuccessful game for 𝘁𝗏, and this was pretty much the first game we've seen 𝘁𝗏 really struggle in the VCS. A lot of people anticipated him to be the weak point for Flash, but so far actually quite a strong laner, especially in terms of CS. Is high up in these statistics, but this was the game where Dia definitely got the better of him.
Yeah, Dia really... I mean, Dia has just been not... I think saying a surprise is wrong, because we knew Dia was going to be good. But did we think Dia was going to be this good?
No, I didn't.
Because, my god, he has been absolutely tearing up everyone so far, and this game does just illustrate it. He went 12-2-6 on the Pantheon. A little bit of an inflated kill score in the end, but still very, very good.
If I remember correctly, there was a bot lane dive where they had 4 kills and 3 of them went to Dia. So yeah, he definitely a little bit inflated, but he made his lead transition into victory in the end. So very strong game from Dia. A top side for the 𝘀𝗰 looking... Oh, actually, everyone bot lane struggled a little bit into 𝘁𝗏, who ended the game with 7-2-7 in a losing team on an immobile ADC, that is MF. So strong performance from 𝘁𝗏. In the end, I think Yijin and 𝘁𝗏 just got overpowered. And if you look at the stats, 8 deaths on Yijin's side, 5 on 𝘁𝗏's. That's 13 deaths already. So yeah, the mid jungle struggled a lot. And in the end, 𝘀𝗀, especially in the early game, just overwhelmed Flash.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there was a little bit of doubt once we were hitting the mid-game-ish. There was like 𝘀𝗀 stalled a little bit, and we might have seen, can 𝘁𝗏 take over this game? And then Levi hit an absolute miracle kick at a dragon fight, kicked 𝘁𝗏 into the middle of 𝘀𝗀.
Oh yeah,
they murdered him and instantly won the game. I think we gave Levi MVP pretty much just for that play, though he had a good game regardless. He didn't have a super great game. And then he won them the game, so it's hard to ignore that. And then, so yeah, that one closed out almost sort of as we expected. Yeah. Flash put up a pretty good fight, but in the end, 𝘀𝗀 was superior. But then coming into game 2, things got a little bit weird.
So 𝘀𝗀.
So I know what you want to talk about. I know you want to talk about the Soraka. So go ahead and give us your impressions of not so much don't start with 𝘀𝗰𝗋's the way 𝘀𝗰𝗋 played it.
Yeah.
But I'd actually like to. It's a little bit off topic, so feel free to tell me you don't want to. But what is your opinion on 𝘀𝗀𝗏 in the VCS?
Oh, that's an interesting question. We haven't seen enough 𝘀𝗀𝗏 to really make a judgment here. I don't
But
think...
based on how you feel about the VCS, how you feel about the champions.
So, it depends a lot on the top laner, in my opinion. So, in my opinion, 𝘀𝗀𝗏 doesn't really sound too bad for VCS, because there are a lot of fights, and 𝘀𝗀𝗏 wins all the fights in the late game. So the only thing you have to consider is 𝘀𝗀𝗏's laning phase. And 𝘀𝗀𝗏's laning phase is very safe, right? That's why she's this OP. You can't really punish 𝘀𝗀𝗏 if the 𝘀𝗀𝗏 knows how to play 𝘀𝗀𝗏 and knows how to take barrier instead of absolutely useless TP, by the way.
𝘀𝗰𝗋.
Yeah, he went for that. Not great. So there are ways to punish 𝘀𝗀𝗏, but there's a reason she's sitting at an, I think, 85% win rate or something on 10.2, 10.3 in pro play. So she's very, very strong. And VCS is all about team fights, so I don't see a reason for VCS teams to not pick 𝘀𝗀𝗏. I think it's a little bit of... they're a little bit hesitant because the top laners are not quite comfortable yet. I think it could be difficult to train 𝘀𝗀𝗏 in Vietnamese solo queue. From everything I've heard, it's very aggressive there, and everyone kills everyone a lot. Even in challenger games, you have like 40 kills to 40 kills or something. I've seen screenshots. So
insane.
It might be the case that people just don't want to practice her too much in solo queue, so you don't have the practice. And even though 𝘀𝗀𝗏 is quite easy to get used to, you still need the 10, 15 games to really understand the champ and really know how to position, when to do what, how to trade, which trades can be lethal for you, because that's quite something you have to understand as 𝘀𝗀𝗏. So I think it's just a little bit of unfamiliarity. What is the word?
Unfamiliarity.
There we go. Thank you.
It's alright. It's what I'm here for. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, it makes sense to me. I think, as you said, I think some people's gut reaction, VCS fans, is, oh, well, they don't want to pick 𝘀𝗀𝗏 because she's not aggressive. But she's actually really great when you're fighting.
Yeah, she's...
as long as you're not doing it at 5 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more VCS teams having a bit of a go with her, but to link it back to what we were talking about, it needs to be done better than this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because 𝘀𝗰𝗋 looked awful.
Yeah, I think this was a little bit of a troll draft to some extent, because both 𝘀𝗀𝗏 and Yuumi are strong. Yuumi on 10.2, not quite as strong as she is on 10.3, where she might be the strongest champ in the game. I'm not quite sure. Between 𝘀𝗀𝗏 and Yuumi, it's close. It's close, but Yuumi is very OP right now. So it's still not 10-2. Yuumi is okay, but not super strong. 𝘀𝗀𝗏 is the strongest champ on the patch. But Yuumi 𝘀𝗀𝗏 offers absolutely no engage. So you kind of need a vessel for the Yuumi and the 𝘀𝗀𝗏 to some extent as well. And this is the comp Hanwha Live played against T1, if I remember correctly. And they won with an Olaf. And an Olaf, of course, can just run in, have infinite... HP and deal a lot of damage. Olaf actually deals a lot of damage. Everyone always says he doesn't scale, but his damage does scale. He just dies a lot if he can't be protected. So this time they went for Lee Sin. Lee Sin didn't do anything. Also, Levi had a horrible game on Lee Sin, something we don't say a lot.
This was probably the worst game we've ever seen Levi have.
Yeah. So I think
it was atrocious.
Was a lot of... I think 𝘀𝗰 just wanted to be too cute, wanted to style on Flash, and we're just not prepared enough. 𝘀𝗏𝗏's Yuumi had 1-2 little weird disattachments, I think, if I remember correctly. Blazes didn't look too great on Aphelios either. Dia had a solid game, as always, on the Rise, but ultimately couldn't carry. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that was sort of the tale of Game 2. I don't think so much Game 2 was about Flash, really. Flash just kind of caught the throw.
They played a good early game, I'd say. Yijin especially just completely shat on Levi. He ran over him and the Qiyana against Lee Sin. Usually Qiyana Lee Sin is quite favorable for the Lee Sin. especially if he's able to catch out the 𝘁𝗏. 𝘁𝗏 can burst him and one-shot him later on in the game, but early on, very Lee Sin favored. And usually 𝘁𝑇i reads every jungler like a book in the VCS and just dominates them. But this time Yijin got the better of him. I think we gave him MVP for this game as well, if I remember correctly.
I think we did. He had a blinder of performance.
Absolutely.
So we definitely should have if we didn't.
And 𝘁𝗏 also bringing out the 𝘁𝗏 and stomping Blazes in lane, which is what 𝘁𝗏 is supposed to do, right? Blazes is kind of a new ADC. 𝘁𝗏 the star ADC of the VCS, so that's exactly what Flash wanted to see from their, I didn't want to say franchise player, but kind of franchise player, you know?
Yeah, him and Yoshino are pretty much the franchise players, kind of, if we want to start using that word. It's a bit dirty. It's a bit of a dirty word in my opinion, but regardless, so overall it was just a good performance from Flash. Maybe 𝘁𝗏 underestimating them a little bit after getting one win, which is it's not 𝘁𝗏 if they're not a little bit arrogant every now and then.
That is very true.
That is just 𝘁𝗏, but they got punished for it this time. Then game 3 did come in. Much more standard drafts this time. Neither team screwing around. We had Yoshino on the set that he has looked very, very good on into 𝘁𝗏's Mordekaiser. 𝘁𝗏 has looked really good on Mordekaiser, even if I don't necessarily think... I'm coming around. I don't think you should pick Mordekaiser into set anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Because you don't neutralize him. If you pick Mordekaiser and you end up against a set, you're like, okay, whatever. But why pick Mordekaiser into set? You should pick something that beats him rather than something that goes even with him.
Oh, makes sense. Soraka, for example.
But Soraka. Soraka would have been a great pick this game. But it did go all the way through draft, as has become a little bit of VCS tradition, ignoring that super OP pick. But where do you think the pressure points were in this game?
So this game, we went back to game 1.
Flash over the line.
For a lot of the game. 𝘁𝗏 actually went off to a great start. Once again, I don't quite remember the game too vividly. I think there was another bot lane dive. And 𝘁𝗏...
that's pretty much every 𝘁𝗏.
Yeah, I think they had another 4-0 kill lead or something, and 2k gold up at 6-7 minutes or something. So a very good early start. 𝘁𝑇i this time had a little bit of a Sorn impression on his 𝘁𝗏 and recovered from the earlier game, the failure on the Lee Sin. So 𝘁𝗏 looked like they would just run away with this game. And okay, we troll one game, we go back to our usual draft and we stomp you. That was kind of the script for this series, and it definitely looked like that would happen again. But then, something happened. The VCS curse, I guess you could call it, happened, and 𝘁𝗏 is still a wildcard team. That's one of the games you still get reminded that this is still a wildcard region to some extent, and 𝘁𝗏 is still, even though they are the best and dominant team here, they are still, sometimes they show tendencies that major region teams wouldn't show. They threw this game, and on multiple occasions they did so. The biggest one obviously was the Baron fight that gave Flash the big advantage and the way back into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a fight around Baron where 𝘁𝗏 played it about as poorly as possible. And I think Flash got 4 kills, or did they ace? I'm not 100% sure.
It was a big fight victory into Baron.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, then they took the Baron and the game just absolutely flipped on its head. And from there, it was it was just Flash all the way, and they did manage to pick up the win in, I mean, I wouldn't say dominant fashion or anything like that. It was very close, but a win's a win.
Absolutely.
And it turns out there is gaps in the 𝘁𝗏 suit of armor.
Also, a very good game for Flash fans, if you look at the players, because 𝘁𝗏 stepped up. And 𝘁𝗏 struggled, if you go back to game 1, we discussed the game 1, where he played Rumble into Dia's Pantheon. Just look at the stats, Pantheon 12-2-6, 𝘁𝗏's Rumble 1-5-10, so not very successful. Game 3, he ended up on Orianna to control Dia's 𝘁𝗏, and teamfights 𝘁𝗏 struggles to fight into Ori a lot of times. because she can't really get past the ball. So 𝘁𝗵 was able to control team fights, ended up with 6-1 and 7, very good score after the early game went to 𝘀𝗀. So he didn't die, he only died once, and dominated team fights later on. And that's a good sign for 𝘀𝗏 fans, because the next time 𝘀𝗀 and 𝘀𝗏 meet, maybe 𝘀𝗏 has more cohesion, even in the early game, and then it could be a very good series once again.
Yeah, potentially. And if 𝘀𝗏 was to take both regular season victories over 𝘀𝗀, that's a very strong statement heading into the playoffs, but that's quite far away, so there's no point speculating on that quite yet.
Mark your calendars. Week 7 is the week where we have the rematch.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a cracker. It was a great series the first time, and I think it'll only be better as we go into the second. So, speaking of playoffs, though, unless you have anything more just to comment on that series, we can sort of look into our early predictions and hot takes about playoffs. I mean, it makes sense to start. Who are your 4 playoffs teams?
Oh, it's so early. It's so early.
It doesn't have to be in order.
I think 𝘀𝗀 and 𝘀𝗏 are locked, in my opinion.
Agree.
So it's 2 teams, and we have 4 teams fighting for 2 spots: 𝘀𝗏, Secret, EVOS, and Buffalo. Right now, I'd say Secret, and I want to say Buffaloes, but I'm not sure. They are very inconsistent. I was very shocked when they lost to 𝘀𝗏. I had them as quite heavy favorites, but they got stomped by 𝘀𝗏. So maybe it's 𝘀𝗏.
Yeah, the last series of DBL 𝘀𝗏 pushed me. It's funny because you said almost exactly what I was going to say about 𝘀𝗏, but you said it about DBL. Like, I was about to say, I really want to lock 𝘀𝗏, but they're so inconsistent.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is pretty much exactly what you said about DBL.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true for both of them.
And they still have to play a whole another round, so everything could change.
There's a long way.
I kind of feel 𝘀𝗏 has better players than all the other playoff teams that are in contention. So obviously not 𝘀𝗀 and 𝘀𝗏, and maybe not even Secret, but the other 2 teams they fight against.
Yeah.
I feel like 𝘁 is outstanding. He had great performances, especially on 𝘁𝗏. He's the only one who can challenge DR1 on a good day, in my opinion, in the mid lane. Maybe 𝘁𝗏, but we haven't seen enough from 𝘁𝗏 this season. 𝘁𝗏 had outstanding performances. I think 𝘁 is coming around to being a solid support player. Topside is a little bit of a struggle for DBL, and their inconsistencies are not great, but I think they're on a good day, their objective control looked great. They challenged 𝘀𝗏 in the series last week. On Saturday, they got a game against them as well. So I kind of feel 𝘀𝗏 is a better team than the other playoff contenders. But they're sitting at 2 and 3 and still have to play EVOS and 𝘀𝗀. So
see, that's the big.
Not a great sign.
They haven't. They're negative, and they haven't played.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this split, if you're not named Team 𝘀𝗏, I'm pretty happy to write off your losses to 𝘀𝗀. It's just like, yeah, okay, you lost to 𝘀𝗀.
Yeah.
That's really count against
feels
you.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you are named Team 𝘀𝗏, if they had lost that, I still would have been kind of saying, well, you lost to 𝘀𝗀. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm a little bit sus when it comes to DBL. I'd be happy to be wrong, though, because I do feel like they have some very good players, so I'd like to see things come together for them. And potentially they can challenge. I think they'd challenge for 4th rather than 3rd.
Yeah. Potentially.
Potentially.
What I like about their lineup right now, especially looking at the meta that might await us on 10-3, I think they have one of the strongest backline setups in the VCS with 𝘀𝗏 and 𝘁. They know how to win championships even. They are multiple-time VCS champions, and if we go back to a little bit more of a tank, especially tank jungle meta, with more teamfight heavy compositions that don't rely on early game coordination that much, it will always be relevant in Modern League, of course, but maybe a little bit more on the late game direction. I think Buffaloes have a better setup in terms of teamfight carries or backline carries than other playoff teams, especially compared to 𝘀𝗏. I think 𝘀𝗏 𝘁 is stronger than 𝘂𝑎𝑑o 𝘂𝗏. 𝘀𝗏 𝘁 is also stronger than 𝘁𝗏 𝗃𝗏, in my opinion. So yeah, I think if it comes to just pure team fight matter, Buffalo looks like the best team out of these three to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. There is a lot more VCS to come, so we don't have to lock anything else in. It's just, the impressions. I personally am leading a little bit towards Cerberus, but again, I may very well be wrong, and as we all know, there's very little stake of it for me, because if I'm wrong, I just say, well, yeah, that's why he's my color card. Because he's smarter than me. But yeah, we haven't really spoken about EVOS very much, who I think are the other team in the conversation. What is there to say about it?
EVOS is a strange team.
Very hard. Yeah.
So EVOS right now is living off their very first day. From the VCS started with EVOS against 𝘀liche, and they were able to run away with the victory. By far the weakest showing for 𝘀liche. 𝘀liche hasn't lost a series since, and they've gotten better and better in all the series after that. So the first showing was great. EVOS is good single players. They have 𝘁𝗲, early frontrunner for... Yeah, maybe the best jungler right now in the league, and with Yulwei slumping here and there. It's close between the two, but yeah, EVOS, they have one win against 𝘀liche, one win against Adonis, and nothing else. So they haven't played FTW yet. That should be a free win. So they should end with 3 wins at least. But they still haven't played Cerberus and DBL either, so...
Yeah,
if they lose both those series, they are far behind the playoff race. So they need to at least win against one of the two teams to have real shots at the playoffs.
Yeah, I think just because of who they've played so far, because you want to give them credit for beating 𝘀liche, right? Because it's the second best team in the league. That's really impressive. When you look at how 𝘀liche played, they weren't looking like the second best team. Particularly their drafts, like those were abysmal.
All right, the drafts. Oh no, don't remind me.
Where they looked like they were drafting from about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that's right.
They were atrocious. So it's like, how much can you really give that to EVOS? I do think you're right that if they don't beat one of DBL or Cerberus and at least go close in the other, you can already sort of write them off as a playoff contender. But we'll have to see how they go. Never know. Do you have any other sort of insights on our early playoff race?
It's much more interesting than the last split, in my opinion. This one looks close, and we have good teams, actually. I think the top 6 are good teams. Some more than others, some inconsistencies here and there, but all are interesting to follow. And then our 7th place team is a very new team that can offer quite a bit of danger to all the other teams, especially if you overlook Adonis. Maybe you lose a series to Adonis and suddenly your playoff chances slip away. DBL has lost against Adonis already, so if they had won against Adonis, they would be sitting at 3rd place, tied for 3rd place. So instead, they are now in 6th place, so we've already seen Adonis influence the playoff race. I don't think they're good enough to really play for playoffs. I think
they can definitely play spoiler.
Yeah, they are the spoiler team, for sure.
I 100% agree with that. Adonis has been super surprising. I mean, I don't think we'll talk about them in any real depth because, I think they're going to come 6th or 7th. But considering we were sort of writing them off as definitely 8th, could go 0-14, that kind of thing, they've absolutely come out of the gate swinging, which is super impressive. However, we can sort of move on now and have a bit of a discussion because we're going to get, presumably, you never know with the VCS, but we have to assume we are going on to a new patch this week. And it's a pretty big patch.
It is.
10.3.
It is. It changed a lot.
What are your sort of standout changes as they might relate to the VCS? There's plenty of takes online about just the patch in general, but as it relates to the VCS, what are your big takeaways?
So big changes for most of the leagues or some leagues more than others, but Yuumi for sure is one of the most important changes. She's back to almost 100% priority. I know you hate her. Understandable. Understandable. I don't quite I don't quite feel the same, but I understand where you're coming from, much more
I'm
so than
okay
with
with her.
𝘀𝗧𝗏.
I'm okay with her when she's niche.
Yeah,
I
she
don't
isn't
think, I
niche
think
right
there's
now.
I think it's bad when she's the best.
Yeah, she's very good. She's a super strong champ. Ezreal has come back into the meta with Yuumi paired up. You can play Ezreal mid lane, and players like Artifact, who are very good ADC mid lane players, could potentially look at a mid lane Ezreal. We haven't actually seen a mid lane Ezreal in one of the big leagues yet, but there have been rumors. I think 𝘀𝗏 has talked about him. We have seen some 𝘁𝗏𝗺s, and we know especially 𝘀𝑇i is a very good 𝘁𝗏𝗺s player. 𝘁𝗏 is not a bad 𝘁𝗏𝗺s player either, so those could be some of the champs we look at. 𝘁𝗏 also always liked farm junglers like Nidalee and Graves, and those should be a little bit better on this patch as well. So potentially a little bit of Nidalee coming back, the VCS champ, potentially the biggest difference in champ priority between all the leagues and the VCS is the Nidalee priority that is always, almost always present. So hyped to see some Cougars roaming around the jungle. 𝘁𝗏𝗺, very cool champ to watch most of the time. Top lane hasn't really changed too much. I think Ornn priority is still very high, or even higher than before. We should see a rise in that. 𝘂HP likes that a lot.
Yeah, he's very happy. I mean, I'm happy. I like seeing Ornn. Hopefully we do see some more VCS teams going towards him, trying to adapt to that tank play, rather than constantly going for the kill lanes. But, you know, trying to take the kill lane out of the VCS can be a little bit difficult.
Yep.
That said, Ornn can kill you.
He
Ornn will kill you.
definitely can.
We've all seen the clips going around.
Ornn could actually give some of the middle of the pack teams a chance against 𝘀𝗏 and 𝘀𝗏, who have two carry top lane players that can play Ornn, especially 𝘂𝗏 has shown us Ornn before, even in his 𝘀𝗏 days, but don't want to play Ornn. So maybe there's a draft victory hidden for Adonis or someone less selfish than the top laners for 𝘀𝗏 and 𝘀𝗏, and maybe you can walk away with a serious win there.
Yeah,
it's a long
that
shot.
Would be absolutely huge. Yeah, still, you miss every shot you don't take. So definitely an interesting one. Are there any other like super big things? I mean, the changes to Senna don't really affect the VCS. She just wasn't being played. So, do we think maybe we see some Senna support? I don't really think so.
I'd really like to see some Senna support. I've been playing with someone who plays a lot of Senna support. It's definitely strikes me a little bit more of like a solo queue champ. I think her vision control is not great in competitive because she's very squishy. She can't really face check, so she struggles to get wards down in dangerous positions and stuff. Also, laning phase, you can exploit her quite a bit if you have the right combination to just burst her down. So I've seen her played with a barrier a little bit now, so that she plays a little bit like support 𝘀𝗏𝗏. So very very much scaling on your own, focused on your own scaling, which makes a lot of sense because now with the buffs to soul spawns for support center, you can actually get to 80 souls at like 20 minutes or something, which is quite ridiculous.
Insane, yeah. I mean, I think other regions might try the sort of 𝘂𝗏𝗏 style thing with Senna, where she starts off as a support but develops more into a carry. I don't know if the VCS will do it.
Maybe 𝘀𝗏𝗺. That's something DBL always liked to do, right? They were the only team to play 𝘂𝗏𝗏, so who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully 𝘀𝗏𝗺, playing the Senna half. But, you know, we'll have to see. Is there any other big takeaways from the patch?
𝘂𝗏𝗏.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Another good 𝘁𝗏 champ, by the way. So
this is a very good patch for 𝘁𝗏.
It might actually be a very good setup for EVOS to look more into a carry jungle meta with 𝘁𝗏𝗺s Graves. If they can't get 𝘁𝗏𝗺s Graves on Nidalee, then just go to 𝘂𝗏𝗏, let him carry from the jungle with 𝑐C and not with creeps, which he would do with 𝘁𝗏𝗺s, of course. So EVOS, if they can adapt to this patch more quickly or quicker than other VCS teams, could get a head start and maybe get the victory in this week against DBL. FTB should be a given. So this is a chance for EVOS.
if you lose to FTV, you should pretty much be signing away your playoff.
Yeah.
Because like not even necessarily just as a FTV is so bad, how could you lose to them? Though that is part of it. Like it's a win you can't afford to not have because everyone else is going to beat FTV out of the playoff contenders. No doubt FTV will find a random win somewhere, but I don't know. I can't predict where.
Yeah, they play Gun this week, so you never know, right?
Oh, I mean, they're pretty favoured in that matchup, honestly.
Of course,
they match
of
up
course.
really well against Gun. I can't even say it. It's just, oh god, FTV. I'd love to go into what's gone wrong with that team, but I just don't think we have time.
Yeah, I don't think there's. It's valuable to talk about them until they show us something. Because right now they're just dead.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing going on in that team.
Yeah, at this point, don't even show up. Like, it has been definitely not the split we would have liked out of FTV. Not looking like the team that managed to save themselves from relegations, for sure. So I think that's sort of all the balance stuff as it relates to our lovely VCS. I definitely do think the jungle changes will be pretty interesting because we have some very good jungles in the VCS. And if they're being empowered to carry a little bit more, I'm pretty excited to see people like 𝘀cie, 𝘁𝗏, even Yijin to an extent, being put in the driver's seat a bit more. Could be very interesting.
Yeah, and it's a big test for people like 𝘀𝗏 as well, who is very famous for his aggressive junglers, for his ganking junglers. 𝘀𝗏cie comes to mind immediately. But will he be able to adapt to 10-3? I think that this is a big test for Cerberus as well. Luckily for them, they have a lot of time to adapt. They only play Flash this week, so that's not an expected victory. And the very big match for Cerberus, as we alluded to earlier, is against EVOS next week. So they still have a little bit of time to adapt to the patch. But then it's 𝘀𝗏 against 𝘁𝗏 on 10-3. So that's a big opportunity for EVOS.
That is going to be a very big one. But with our talk of the patch sort of wrapping up, we can move into a little bit more about EVOS, as they do have a reasonably important game this week. They are taking on, DBL. Sort of what's your impressions going into this one? Obviously, we've spoken about, I think we both would favour DBL. But I don't think it's by a huge amount.
No. And both are coming from a very bad week. EVOS lost to 𝗀cie Secret. DBL lost twice, and one of the two losses was to Cerberus. 0-2, they got stomped. It wasn't even close. They looked out of sorts. So this is very hard to predict. Who knows? Maybe DBL didn't recover in time, and EVOS with 𝘁𝗏 getting a huge boost from this new patch. Maybe a little bit of Graves action. I'd like to see the Karthus. Maybe EVOS can actually win. I think it's very close to 50-50, and it has huge implications for the playoffs.
Yeah, the playoff implications really can't be overstated. You would be heavily favouring, maybe not heavily, but you would definitely be favouring whoever wins this week to get the spot over the other.
Yeah.
Because of how much value there is in a head-to-head win. Where do you think... I mean, I think we both think oh god, I said think too many times in that sentence. The jungle is going to be pretty crucial, particularly with the patch. Where else do you think this game will be won and lost?
Mid lane, for sure. So, 𝘁𝗏 is one of our frontrunners for MVP, right? Especially in week 2, he was outstanding. He has accrued 3 MVPs so far on our stream. He had legendary performances on 𝘀cie𝗶𝗃, that even led to a great thumbnail and now an emote, the 𝘀𝗏. But yeah, and 𝘁𝗏 needs to continue to step up, and especially on the other side, 𝘁𝗏 is facing him, and 𝘁𝗏 had a horrible week in week 3, where he played against Secret. Think back to his Orianna performance, or don't do so if you want to retain your sanity, because that was...
Look, he was just...
That was rough.
Really liked hula hoops. we were begging him to hit an ult by the end of that game. Like, I think he hit about a total of like 5 things.
Yeah, I know. It was one of the worst Orianna performances I've ever seen. It was so...
It was pretty horrendous. I mean, it is a pretty rough one to try and bounce back into. Like, oh, I've had a bad week. I need to bounce back. Who am I going against?
No, yeah.
Oh, shit. Like, oh no, going straight back into Gnål. That's super, super rough. But if he manages to bounce back, it'll actually be a pretty big tick for a box from him because, shows a bit of mental fortitude.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he gets one over on Gnål, it doesn't really matter about how his last week was. He got one over on Gnål, which is super impressive regardless.
And also good for EVOS, they play FTV tomorrow, so they actually have one warm-up series, basically, to get back together, to get back to the synergy, and then enter DBL on a high note, while DBL is still trying to digest the Cerberus loss. So it's scheduling definitely has worked in EVOS's favor this time, and I think, yeah, this might, together with the 10-3 patch, EVOS might be slight favorite here in this matchup, even though I'd say over the course of the whole split, I'd say DBL is potentially the better team. But now in this situation, if I look at all things that happened in week 3 and the patch hitting, that should not favor Meliodas, by the way. Meliodas, not a great pathing jungler. His path is atrocious, so please don't do that.
Please don't, Meliodas. There are some champions that... When you come to Meliodas, it's not so much champions you really want to see him pick. It's champions you really don't want to see him pick.
Yeah.
We don't need any Meliodas. We don't need any Meliodas Carthus. I can do without those.
Yeah, in Italy, please no.
On my weekends.
Just give me J4, Gragas, Rek'Sai. You're good on those champs.
Yep.
Just yeah.
Yes. Bit harsh, but in the end, it's tough love, really. But yeah, I think that is how that series kind of breaks down. It is the jungle and the mid lane. The other interesting series we have this week is, I mean, it's not quite as even as the one we just spoke about, obviously, is Cerberus versus Flash. If Cerberus manages to win this, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it's not. It's pretty unlikely. I think Flash is one of Cerberus' worst matchups, as we talked about earlier. Cerberus is kind of like the gatekeeper team, the team that tests the individual skill. And if you have better individual skill on all the players, you win against Cerberus. If you have a worse individual skill, you lose. And I think Flash has by far better individual players, so...
I don't think that's very close.
Yeah, it's Artemis against Slater. That's exciting. That's a very cool matchup between the former sub of Flash and now the player for Cerberus and the actual Flash ADC. So Artemis subbed in for Slater sometimes in the last season. Now he's with Cerberus. Zhu Hao. Yep. I still think Zhu Hao will struggle to adapt to this meta. I think Yijin is overall a better jungler and will have an easier time bringing out something like 𝘁𝗵𝗺 maybe. He's a good 𝘁𝗵𝗺 player. Zhu Hao, not so much. So, yeah, I think this is not a good time for Cerberus as well to hit Flash. This is potentially... this could be a rough series for Cerberus, where they just can't find anything to scratch Flash's armor.
Yeah, if the scratch does come in though, who do you think will be holding the knife?
I think it's very hard to pinpoint to any singular player. I think it's just Cerberus having a better early game. So far they've shown strong early games, and I think they'll just try the GAM approach, dive bot lane, S4, and Flash has fallen prey to some of those dives. So Cerberus could just maybe manufacture a team effort and then just run away with the game in the early game, because the last time Cerberus has a 4-0 week, had a 4-0 week in week 3, so they are definitely entering this week confident, and they probably think they can beat Flash. So I'd like to see
have the mentality.
Yeah, I'd like to see a lot of aggressive plays, proactive plays, especially in the early game. Try to get a head start, try to get off to a good lead, so that the individual skill difference between Flash, the players, can't cost you the victory in the later team fights. Because later team fights, very Flash favored in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. What else is there to say about this matchup, or do we just think it's going to be a pretty big hill for Cerberus to climb?
Yeah,
Potentially an important one?
I think the games will still be very cool to watch, because I think Cerberus will approach this series very proactively and will try to find the cracks in the armor. So I'd expect this series to go Flash's way, but also to be explosive, especially in the early game. Maybe cool picks, very, very aggressive jungle pathing from Zhuhao, some Rek'Sai ganks early on. So this should be very, very watchable, and maybe a little bit one-sided in the end, but still exciting.
Yeah, it should still be very, very fun. So, I mean, that's sort of all the stuff we wanted to specifically focus on. But, you know, what else are we looking at? What has been your favourite moments, your funniest moments maybe, that kind of thing, in the few weeks?
Well, that last cast we had, 𝘀𝗰 against Secret, that was quite something. I had a great time.
It was fun.
I don't remember anything that happened in the games, but it was a fun time.
We didn't have much to talk about in games.
Yeah, 𝘀𝗰 just rolled over them. So
I feel like that's going to be a lot of 𝘀𝗰 games.
definitely feels like that way.
I mean, I almost feel bad. Because I always ask you, like, oh, what movies have you been watching? And then you'll name something that's, like, quite intellectual. And you'd be like, oh, what have you been watching? I'll be like, oh, fuck. I've been playing World of Warcraft, Yulwei. I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft.
That's fair.
It's not as fun to talk about as like, a good movie or something.
Oh.
But we'll save that kind of podcasting for real podcasts that we do during 𝘀𝗰 games.
Of course. And we have 𝘀𝗰 against FTV coming up, so get ready for 1.5 hours live podcast on Saturday.
In all seriousness, you might think, oh, that's a terrible series. We're going to make it fun. We are going to make that fun no matter how much effort it takes us, because I don't think FTV will be helping. Hopefully 𝘀𝗰 helps. Hopefully. 𝘀𝗰 has a 𝘀𝗰.
I want a cool 𝘀𝗰 style composition. 𝘁𝗶𝗃𝗃, hit me again. Give me the Master Yi. Give me Tryndamere top lane.
Give me the proper 𝘬𝗁𝗁.
Yeah.
Where they don't pick Lee Sin with it. Where they give Levi Olaf or something.
Master Yi. Yeah. Yuumi Master Yi. That's the way. It's so dumb.
I'd be super happy to see that.
And Kayle in the mid lane to give him a shield. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, you got to give him some more. No, you got to get the mid lane 𝘬𝗁. Come on, you got to know the solo queue strats.
Yeah, of course.
Let's play a funnel. But I think we do. Look, the VCS. I've got to say, I'm having more fun this split already than I did last split, and that's not to say I didn't have fun last split. I really did. This has been a good split so far. It's been really fun.
Yeah. Great teams, 6 competitive teams, 1 interesting team and 1 not team, but yeah, still a great setup compared to last split where we had 4 competitive teams, 2 meh teams, and 2 what are these teams doing teams.
two paycheck.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting setup for the split. We finally have a little bit of competition at the top end, which is obviously the greatest thing to have. 𝘀𝗰 still looks like the favorite, and I want to tie this into maybe with the last point. I've listened to parts of the dive and want to steal one of their very interesting discussion topics. They discussed C9 against the field. Who would you bet on right now in NA? And we could twist that for the VCS as well. So if you had to bet right now on the victor of this split, so playoffs, at the end of playoffs, 𝘀𝗰 against the field, so the field meaning all 7 other teams, who would you pick?
I mean, so you have to pick who would beat them, or do you pick 𝘀𝗰?
Yeah, you basically say what's more likely. Is it more likely that 𝘀𝗰 wins, or that one of the 7 other teams wins?
𝘀𝗰. I think it's more likely that 𝘀𝗰 wins. Because I think only one team really challenges them.
What percentage would you give 𝘀𝗰 to win this split?
75.
Oh, that's high. Wow. Okay.
I have a lot of faith in them. Because I mean, who else is challenging them other than Flash? So you really, what you're really asking is, what percentage do you give Flash?
It's kind of. I mean, there could still be something weird happening.
Okay,
It's
maybe
unlikely.
2 or 3%
Yeah.
to Adonis storming the back half.
I think if Secret gets everything together, they could be like a 10% chance at the title.
That's actually a fair point.
Cerberus, I don't think Cerberus can win the title. EVOS, nah. Maybe if Sawn just goes mental and destroys everyone. Very unlikely, maybe 2%. Buffalo, I don't see it. I don't see
They
it.
haven't shown it yet.
No. So I'd say Gum for me is something like 60%. So I'd pick Gum as well, I have to say. I think they're the strongest team. Maybe 55. It's between 55 and 60 for me. Then Flash has a solid chance as well, something like 30. Yeah, if I give 60 to Gum, I'd say 30 to Flash, and then 8 to Secret and 2 to EVOS. 1 to EVOS, 1 to Dashing. Yeah, I guess. If everything goes all right, right for EVOS, maybe. But yeah, it's very unlikely.
Yeah, okay. I mean, to be fair, as much as that sounds like, oh wow, this is a bit of a boring top end, I'd say that's closer than it was last split.
Oh, for sure. Last split would be 90% Gum or something, or more, 95.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So good to see more competition. Hopefully that keeps on developing. I think even if you are a Gum fan, and I know there's a lot of them, you should, want to see more competition, maybe push Gum to kind of maybe improve when it comes to international performance.
Yeah, and even if Gum ends up winning again, I think the series we already saw them lose is very important for Gum's development, because they can't get away with stupid picks, with stupid mistakes in the mid game anymore. Flash is good enough to punish them. Maybe Flash is not the better team. I think for sure Flash is a worse team than Gum right now. Not as consistent, have lost twice as many games, have won 2 games less. But Flash is good enough to punish Gum, and that's very important for Gum's development coming into MSI, if there is an MSI, coming into Worlds later. It's good to see.
Yeah, I completely agree. You make a good point. Is it going to be an MSI?
Who knows?
The best situation over in a lot of Southeast Asia and just Asia in general. Hopefully that. I mean, the PCS is starting.
Yeah.
We'll have to have Vinnie on, and he can have like a 10-minute PCS chart.
Oh no.
Will be about as riveting as a PCS game.
Oof.
In fact, probably more riveting because I enjoy listening to Vinnie.
Competition between PCS and 𝘀liche for Snooze Fest will be fierce.
Yeah. Oh God, the 𝘀liche. Not our podcast to talk about it, but Jesus Christ, the 𝘀liche.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Well,
but yeah.
We don't know, because we decided to record this podcast instead of watching KT against APK, so...
yeah. I think it was a better option.
Yep, for sure.
Having a chat. But yeah, do you have any sort of closing remarks on what we've seen so far, what we're expecting, or are we done with another episode of the EveryWei podcast?
Yep, we didn't really get to talk about MVPs too much. I think we'll do that the next time. Yeah, I mean, it's still early in the season. Just to quickly run down a few outstanding players for the first 3 weeks. We have Null, Ronopi, and 𝘀ecie on 3 MVP points, Dia1 on 4, and then a few others on a lot of other people on 2 and 1 point. So Sawn, I forgot Sawn, of course. Sawn on 3 points as well. Those are the strongest players so far for the first 3 weeks. We'll check back in with the next episode, maybe in a week, maybe in 2, to see who's maybe catching up to Dia if Dia can run away even farther.
That will certainly be interesting. If Dia is slowed down, that could lead to some pretty interesting implications for the league. But yeah, we will go much more in depth on MVPs. We did want to get to it this episode, but we are already a little bit over time, so do we want to be wrapping it up? Something exciting to talk about in terms of this podcast is we have to organise it, but it should happen eventually. If it's not next episode, it'll definitely be the one after. I'm actually going to be talking to a writer who is a big part of the production side of the VCS.
Yeah.
It'll be a really good insight. I'm actually quite excited. to talk to them about that. But yeah, we'll definitely keep people posted about when we're doing that. I think it will be a lot of insight for everyone that's interested in the VCS.
Yep.
And the other, again, if you've got anything to say before I do our little sign off.
I'd like to thank Pangoro as again. He's has provided us with all the lovely graphics. He's updating, keeping us up to date with all the schedule changes and stuff like that. So big thanks. You're our hero. We don't deserve you, but still, please keep doing that for us.
We don't deserve you, but don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Then big shout out to you as well, EveryWei. Thank you for just taking over production as my computer struggled to do it time and time again last split. I think we've already upped the quality of the stream just by having the play-by-play caster stream, so we don't actually get play-by-play delayed. So that's already big improvement. That we have all the new graphics and stuff, and you're really doing a great job handling production, even if it's sometimes very annoying to do. So thank you very much for that. And
I appreciate it. Of course, now you make me feel bad. Now I've got to think of something to thank you.
nah.
I mean, I don't think I need to be specific about what I appreciate you for. Everyone can see it on the cast. But regardless, we will sign off as I have been EveryWei. With me has been Yulwei. One thing we do want to really encourage people to do, obviously we love the casting the VCS. We said at the start, like, we feel weird on nights that we aren't doing it. But that said, it is still a lot of hours. It's a lot of work, and we do try and put our best into it, but we would like to potentially just get a little bit out of it. So we do have a Patreon, which is all over our social media and the like. So if you'd like to support us, we would really, really appreciate it. We haven't worked out any like backer rewards or anything yet. It's not that we don't want to work them out, it's just that we haven't thought of it. So if you have any ideas, do hit us up. But yeah, this has been another episode of the EveryWei podcast with EveryWei and Yulwei. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed it.
See you tomorrow for VCS.